Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Prestige webinar series. My name is Melissa Analfo, and I'm the Client Success Specialist here at PrestigePEO. I will be your host this morning as we dive into the next round of news and important information as you move your businesses forward. Today, I am joined by Andy Lubash, founder and CEO of PrestigePEO, who would like to take the first few minutes to share a few words with us. So before we dive in, I'm going to pass the mic right over to Andy.
Wait, you had to take me off mute. I know a lot of people want to mute me permanently because I talk too much, but come on, guys. Anyway, again, everybody, thank you for taking the time to attend the, I guess, bi-weekly now webinars with regards to what is changing and what is happening in the world, and I'm glad that we're able to assist everybody, with any of the issues that are arising. The feedback I've been receiving from many of you, and again, as I put my, contact information out there, again, my direct line is 917-258-0223. We'll probably should create a slide for this going forward. My email address is alubash, as you see, my first initial of my first name and my last name at PrestigePEO. And then my cell is 516-680-5021. I've received a lot of positive feedback from everybody or clients and participants to these meetings regarding these seminars, and I'm very appreciative of the positive feedback. And I've also received some advice on things that we can do differently, some input, which is really important as well, because again, your input's very important to us. The great part about this is that when we turn back the clock 15 months ago, we were doing seminars with regards to PPP loans and furloughs and paid leave, and the world was kind of upside down at that point. Literally, the planet literally was upside down. Yesterday, Governor Cuomo of New York lifted all restrictions. As he put it, life back to normal again, or as close to normal as it possibly can be, which is good news. A lot of questions have been coming up about reopening, vaccinations. Do you have to vaccinate? Can you force someone to vaccinate? What the process is to reopen our offices and reopen our workplaces. I know at Prestige, we've been 50% open for a little bit for a while, but feedback from our employees is they want to come back. I mean, people want to see people. They want to be actively involved. They want to collaborate. They want to learn. They want things to get back to normal. And again, maybe it won't be quite the same as it was, but what's happening now is raising a lot of questions. So on the call, Melissa, Carol, and the rest of the Prestige team will go through a lot of what we've heard, the questions we've heard, the legislation. There have been court rulings, as we've all heard or all read about, that have taken place regarding a lot of the questions that we are asking. And again, Prestige is, even as an employer, on my end, we're dealing with a lot of the issues that you're dealing with as well. So before I really, again, suck up the whole hour, or they actually put me on mute, or for those that are old as me, they'll gong me like in the Gong Show, I'll turn it back to Melissa. But again, thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you so much for that, Andy. All right.
I get back on mute.
So this morning, we are going to go ahead and cover the considerations and options for employers as you all begin to maintain your remote staff or not. We're also going to dive into some minimum wage updates along with the latest changes to the Form W-4. From there, we're going to go ahead and cover the latest questions coming in across the company covering benefits, human resources, and payroll. We'll then give you some insight into how we'll build our future webinars coming down the pike as we continue to serve you and your organization's needs no matter where you are in your business. As a reminder, all participants will be muted during the presentation. As usual, we have Carol here with us in the Q&A feature of the chat answering your questions. And this video, along with the slide deck, will be posted on our website at prestigepeo.com/blogs. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and begin. So let's talk about remote employees. We're reaching where businesses are settling into the next phase of their business and employee culture. So where remote work was once a temporary solution, we're finding it becoming ingrained in the operations of many organizations, and it represents the future of business. So though some businesses have chosen to embrace the office environment and would really like to leave telecommuting as a thing of the past, those moving forward with this new dynamic have a few things that we would recommend considering. One of the benefits of telecommuting is that you're able to reach a wider employee network. You can now begin to look nationwide for your talent. Your responsibility, however, will not just end at that hiring stage. So employers will now need to determine applicable withholdings and workers' compensation and unemployment. So each state may also have their own, set of wage and hour laws and labor posters, and these things are going to really vary on an individual level. So talking about withholdings, when we say applicable withholdings, we're really referring to what state is the employee establishing a connection to. So with COVID-19, it really highlighted this somewhat logistical nightmare for some of us. But really before all of this problem has kind of existed for many, many, many moons. So to break this down a bit further, each individual state tends to have their own set of rules for telecommuter arrangements, and some do not, and the taxation that follows with that. So let's take New York, for example. New York has some pretty strong telecommuter rules. The standard is that it meets the convenience of where is how they kind of describe those rules. If the employee meets the criteria that the state requires, then they are responsible for New York taxes, regardless of where working. So if we have any clients who are familiar with this, we found that, some individuals wanted to move, out of state for a less heavy taxation and unfortunately found out that they could not escape. So there are a number of states with a similar rule in terms of convenience, if you will, and that's why it's really important to understand statutory level laws in your organization's principal location and where your employees are moving to. The benefit here is that you have Prestige to partner with you. We absolutely do not recommend just kind of going off and figuring it out. We are here to partner with you. So as these individual circumstances come up, lean on us. We will take a look at all factors in play and sort that through with you and your staff. When it comes to labor posters, wherever your employees are located, the great news is labor posters should be posted on both a federal and state level, right? They all need to be available. So whether or not you have a physical office or remote employees, that's just going to determine the method in which they receive that information. So again, Prestige is going to set up for you these physical posters in your office environments, as well as electronic posters via email for your remote employees. So that will come via email, or the great thing is too, because we're all kind of scattered across the nation right now, when you log into Prestige Pro, and this is if you're coming from a client manager side on the admin login or your employees are heading to the employee portal, all members of your organization can access their state's posters. So nobody is going to lose out on access to the information no matter where they are. As updates are made regularly, whether on a federal level or a statutory level, we will automatically supply you with updates, right? So this could be an electronic update, or if you have those physical posters, you may be familiar with us sending you updates. Sometimes it's a sticker on your existing poster, but again, it's something to be mindful of. We won't send you anything willy-nilly. We will always keep you up to date with these important factors. As a good to know, where your employee is physically working tends to determine the workers' compensation and unemployment insurance. The better thing to know is that, yet again, this is something that Prestige is going to help you out with. So once we've looked at your employee situations and where they are working and the states and your principal location and all of that together, we're going to help working with finding your workers' comp coverage, handling state registrations. That's the easy part for us. Once we've worked together to determine the situation, we'll take it from there and keep you updated. Next, you're also going to want to take a look at the hour laws, right? And all of the different leave benefits that might apply in those states. So for example, an employee who lives and works in New York is eligible for something called New York Paid Family Leave. But an employee who's residing outside of New York telecommuting does not have that same benefit, right? But that state might have something else. So all of these are really important to consider. We will understand what employees are responsible for on a taxation level in terms of statutory and federal policies. But being mindful of that gives us the opportunity to kind of come in and guide for next steps and support. So getting to the bottom of all of this can be overwhelming at best. So again, we encourage you to call us and we'll work with you through it. Truly, no situation ever ends up being the same, right? So we'll work with you, we'll determine really how everything is going, how everything is looking, and we'll make sure you are set up and compliant with wherever you're doing business and in what fashion. As we get more into the payroll side of items, so there's a handful of kind of changes to the W-4 form, as you can see here. So if anybody has updated their tax forms within the year 2020, you are familiar with the massive changes from the year prior. So for those of you who had not yet had to make those changes, gone are the days of single one, single two, and so on. So in an attempt to simplify the withholding process, we have all collectively kind of gone through a level of confusion. So, oh, I apologize, there is a different title here. No, I'm going to skip forward here. There we go. So while the withholding allowances have been removed, right, so no longer 1, 2, 3, individuals are now claiming deductions and dependents. And then from there, if you are working multiple jobs, you get to work through 3 separate options. So the intent of the redesign really is for more accurate withholdings, right? And an easier way to adjust your withholdings. So although you are no longer knowing like your standard exemptions, this form, if you go through step by step, it will tell you exactly how to really kind of consider what you're populating on this form. It can be a bit overwhelming at first, but if you're logged into PrestigePEO and you've gone through the wizard, it will take you step by step. One great change with these forms too is that previously, individuals have not been able to address any additional income from self-employment, right? It was a thing that they had to handle separately. But now, on the updated form, individuals who do perhaps have a side job, or they have different sources of income that are not necessarily these wages or their primary income, it can be addressed, which really does help streamline that process for individuals, and it kind of really helps people get more granular. We do recommend, you know, hanging out with a financial advisor and really making a customized application to this. But hopefully this can kind of give some insight into what happened to the standard withholdings and why does it look so different. Now, if I backtrack here for just a minute. So when it comes to minimum wage, there are some updates, as you can see, happening mid-year. So while there's going to be an increase to some tipped minimum wage, then you have a state like Pennsylvania, for example, increasing the monthly salary threshold. There are some nuances wrapped up in all of it. So when considering your workforce, give your Prestige team a call. We're going to be happy to set you up with the right steps moving forward. All of these changes are, you know, constant, right? And all of these compliance regulations. So really depending on your classifications of employees or the nature in which they perform work, or even details such as are benefits being offered, right? There's different wage requirements. So you do not have to figure this out on your own. This is just to kind of give you a heads up that come July, if you're in these states, reach out to us. We will help you and help navigate through this. All right. So now we're going to dive into some frequently asked questions that we've seen coming down the pike. This is also wrapped up in all the legislations from last year, as well as just moving forward in the new climate. All right, so on a benefits end, we're talking about what is an FSA, a flexible spending account. So an FSA is allowing individuals to contribute their pre-tax dollars to certain healthcare related expenses. So there's 2 types. You can have a healthcare FSA and a dependent FSA. In the healthcare realm, you can use your funds to pay for things like your co-pays and your deductibles, even co-insurance, if that's part of your plan. There is a yearly limit. So for 2021, the limit is $2,750. If you do choose to enroll in the following year, so 2022, you will be able to roll over up to $1,000. Now, with dependent care, you can set aside up to $10,500 of pre-tax income for your child, and that's for any child under 13 of age to help with child care expenses. And it's important to note, though, that unlike FSA, you cannot roll over those funds. So again, you can choose how much you would like to set aside, right? So you can really plan that out depending on what your situation looks like. The really neat thing about FSA, there is such thing as an FSA store, right? So if by the end of the year you're looking and maybe your co-pays and deductibles and doctor's visits haven't been enough, with this online store, you can actually purchase some personal health care items as well with those funds. Continuing on with the benefits theme here, let's talk about qualifying life events. So the most common times people are going to enroll in benefits are when they start a new job and they're newly eligible, or it's the open enrollment period. Outside of that, generally speaking, there are no changes that can be made to your plan unless you have a qualifying life event. So some of the situations might be the birth or adoption of a child, marriage or divorce, loss or gain of other coverage, depending on where you might have had it. Right, so there's a few different ways. You can always reach out to your benefit specialist to determine if it is a qualifying life event or not. If you qualify, you can kickstart that process right from the employee portal. If you log in, you should find a widget right there that enables you to launch that process, and then we'll take you through the next steps. Now, keep in mind, if you do have a qualifying life event, you must request that enrollment within 30 days of qualifying. So if you're beyond that, we really cannot backdate that for you. So it's important that you get that in. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait until the next open enrollment period, and we don't want that to happen for you. So when we talk about our different providers, we always want to make sure that we're staying in network, right? Unless you have great out-of-network coverage or you just don't care. So when you're looking for an in-network participating provider or facility, it's important to know that each carrier is going to be a little different. So you can take a look at the web links right here, and just to remind you, this slide deck will be posted online, so you can just go ahead and retrieve it from there, or you could access it right from your employee portal. So again, upon logging into the employee portal on the left-hand side, on that navigation pane, there is a line called Benefits, and then Benefit Web Links. From there, you'll have Oxford, UHC, or Emblem, and MetLife, whatever is applicable to you. And you can also access that right from the Prestige Go mobile app as well, so you won't lose any functionality if you're on the go. When you're logging in, the steps are right here. It tends to be very much right in your face, right? It's a find a provider. You will want to know some details of your plan, such as your network, and if you have any other sort of variables added in. If you are not sure or you're not familiar, please reach out to us. We'll be able to set you up with the things that you'll need to add in your search and be able to find the appropriate provider. One common question is obtaining a medical and or dental member ID number. When looking to access this information, more often than not, you can go ahead and grab it right from the carrier website. So once your coverage is active with Oxford or UHC and MetLife, you can go ahead and register your own online account with those carriers. Again, you can access those web links right from the portal. Here you can go ahead and download a temporary or paper ID card if you're waiting for your physical one to come in the mail, or you can just look up the number if all you need is the number and you don't need a card with it. For Emblem members, if you do need an ID number, contact your benefit specialist and they will help you right out with that. Keep in mind too that for any vision insurance or you will not receive any physical card in the mail. So if you're waiting on that, it'll never come. So if that is something that you do want, you will have to go online to retrieve that. All right. Now, making changes mid-year, just like a qualifying life event. So the answer is generally no, unless you qualify. If there's any questions on what is a qualifying event, please let us know. We'll definitely take you through that. So when you have your coverage, everything's great, and then you receive a denial, what do you do at that point? Call us, right? You do not have to go ahead and call your doctor or call your carrier and do the fight for yourself. We'll look into it for you. So we'll look into why the denial happened, if there's an obstacle such as pre-authorization or step therapy or any quantity limits, right? We'll address that. We'll take a look. We'll see what got in the way. And if there's anything that we can do, we absolutely will do it. right? So we'll even go ahead and call your providers, and we will direct them on what they need to do to move this forward, right, such as reaching out to the medical management. We will not just sit there. We will make sure that this gets addressed in any way that we can. Now, moving on to more payroll frequently asked questions. Let's talk about limits for Social Security and Medicare. So in 2021, all income up to $142,800 has a 6.2% tax rate for Social Security. Any income earned in excess of that limit will not incur the Social Security withholdings. Now, for Medicare, there is no limit. So if you earn $200,000 or below, you are subject to a 1.45% withholding. And if you earn in excess of $2,000, those earnings only in excess will incur a 2.35% withholding on those earnings. Now, again, any questions, we can always keep you up to date. But if you do earn up to or exceed any of those limits, you should be able to see the difference on your pay stubs. If there's any questions of your pay stubs and how to kind of understand that, we'd be more than happy to take you through and help you kind of navigate the fun world of wage limits. Now, looking at regular versus supplemental earnings. So this is a common question to understand why different earnings are taxed sometimes so differently. So with a regular earning, that is something that is subject to your federal and state withholdings, right? So that Form W-4 that we looked at earlier, that's going to determine the taxation on your regular earnings, your pay stub, right? So it's based on your marital status and different deductions and all of that fun stuff. Now, with supplemental earning, it's taxed on a federal level at 22%. And as you can see, that percentage does go up over $1 million in earnings. So you're looking at 37%. And on a state level, most will also use the percentage method. So for example, New York's supplemental tax rate is a 9.62%. So when it comes to regular versus supplemental, the easiest way to think about it is that regular is your standard income, supplemental are other earnings, right? So if you've maybe received a bonus or an additional type of income, you might have noticed that the taxation was much higher. And this is why, and this is a regulation, we just have to jump into it. Any questions, just let us know. Again, we'd be happy to make sense of this as you tend to look at your pay stubs and want to understand why things are happening the way that they are. So looking at the 401k contribution limits. For 2021, all employees can contribute up to $19,500. This is through a 401k, a 403b, and most 457 plans. For those of you who are 50 years of age and older, you can contribute an additional $6,500 to your retirement plan. Any questions on doing so, please let us know. If you have partnered with Blue Star, our preferred partner, you can do so by logging into your employee portal. Go ahead and click the web link that's right listed there for retirement and Blue Star, and you can update your deferral at any time, percentage, flat dollar amount, however it is you want it to go. You can do it right from there or your PrestigePEO mobile app. All right, let's get into the HR facts. So this is similar to our theme from last webinar, but can you require employees to be vaccinated? So the simple answer is yes. The EEOC does state that you can. However, be prepared to make reasonable accommodations. So this is for any disability or religious belief-related restriction. It is not black and white determination, so you will want to look at all implications down the road and how this might affect your workforce. As mentioned in a few webinars prior, work with your HR business partner to navigate this situation. No two scenarios are going to be the same. So just anything, we're going to look at all factors in play, right? So this includes you and your employees, your work environment, culture, and work type, right? We'll help you determine what works best for your organization. The idea is that together we'll be able to get from point A to point B in the easiest fashion, if you will. If you have an employee that is resistant or refuses to return to the workplace after being remote. So as per usual, every situation is different. But consider the following, right? So are there established policies and safety protocols in place, right? So if you have an employee who's resistant, are they resistant after the company has done everything possible to take care for them in a safe and consistent work environment? Is there any reasonable accommodation at play here, right? So is there a medical reason, right, that there is some concern? Is this a religious belief, right? There are a lot of protected items here that we do need to consider and be mindful of when really putting in these black and white policies. Is a leave of absence an option, right? Take some time. Can we make that work? What about a flexible policy? Is there any benefits to that, right? Perhaps work from home, right? And then we'll take a look at, well, is in-person work really even necessary, right? And it's difficult, especially when we're used to having everybody in the office environment, and kind of getting fluid with this can be a bit jarring, of course. But sitting back and reflecting on these items really helps determine what can be done, what should be done, and what is safest for your organization to really minimize as much risk as possible. So taking a look at handling unmasking issues and those not vaccinated. So just as we talked about in the prior webinar, so with the CDC now releasing guidance that a fully vaccinated individual does not have to wear their mask, right? We're now looking at, well, what do we do with our workplace then, especially if we have, a different vaccination status for all employees over, right? So we have maybe 3 different options to consider. And again, we do not recommend taking one and running with it. We will help you navigate, right? We can take a little bit from each, right? But you're looking at 3. So the most conservative option is to keep everything as it is, right? So it's the lowest risk. It is the most consistent, but it's everybody stays masked, everybody social distances. And if you do go this route, we do recommend communicating the intent with this, which is to stay consistent and to stay, mindful of all employees regardless, right? It's a very level playing field, if you will. If you do go this route, definitely equip your managers and your supervisors, any leader in your organization, with how to handle that process should we have any questions, comments, complaints, and concerns, and so on. Your second option is going to be a little bit less conservative. There is a higher burden on your employees, and you do bring in some risk of some legal liabilities. But on this end, it's very much in line with the CDC guidance. So that guidance, again, if you are fully vaccinated, meaning you have received your second dose or your first dose and you have waited the appropriate amount of time, depending on the type of vaccine, you can allow those individuals to no longer wear a mask. To do so, it does require that you have proof of that. And that's where your risk comes in a legal standpoint. So we don't want to collect medical documentation. We don't want to hold on to medical documentation. In fact, we really don't want to keep anything other than a recorded pass-fail. So in the event that you do go this route, our recommendation would be develop a system for recording whether or not somebody is vaccinated, right? So just brainstorming here, you can go ahead and, have a list of employee names and a yes or no column, and you have a trusted individual reviewing the documentation and checking off yes or no. Anything outside of that and holding on to documentation does put you at risk for certain PII violations. Do not go ahead and retain information unless you are very familiar and perhaps have legal counsel with determining how to hold on to medical documentation for your employees. Now, the third is the least burdensome, but also brings in some just standard risk, right? So it's the honor system. You can tell your individuals, hey, if you are, fully vaccinated, go ahead, remove your mask. The issue with that is that, listen, if you are following the guidance and you want to follow those guidance, please understand that you will have individuals who are not fully vaccinated removing their masks. If you do choose to go the honor system, you can now not just go ahead and call somebody out and ask them to prove it, right? So keep in mind with that one, if you are not asking them to prove it, we do not know for sure. And then in the event anybody does put a microscope on your organization and not following the guidance, you do run a risk of being cited for not maintaining that kind of safe and consistent workplace for all. Now, listen, things will change on the, right? So every state is going to be different. Some states might open up fully. Some states may have certain requirements for certain types of employees, and some may not, right? So again, these are just perfect case scenarios where you can actually look at the three and make your determination, pick what works from others and not. Again, as always, we're here to be a partner for you, right? So we can bounce ideas off each other. We can see what's going on together and determine how we're going to get through this, right? So, you know, no rush to be perfect, and, you know, we'll absolutely all get there together. Now let's talk about future webinars. We could continue coming up here every 2 weeks and, you know, deciding what you're going to learn about. The most impactful webinars are the ones that we took from you, right? So we encourage you to speak your mind and not hold back. And please let us know what you want to hear about. If there's anything coming down the pike, if you're concerned about the future or you have no idea what that W-4 thing was, then we need to go take a look at that again. Please let us know. We want to make sure that these are as impactful and supportive to your organization as you now grow and continue on in the new climate. So to go ahead and wrap up this week's installment, I'd like to thank Andy again for joining us this morning and, you know, setting us up with a few words in the beginning, and Carol, as always, for dedicating her time in the Q&A feature of the chat. As mentioned earlier, you will find this presentation, and along with the slide deck, it'll be on our blog, The Prestige Perspective, and you will also find it in the COVID-19 Resources Center. Logging into PrestigePEO.com, just head up top to resources. From there, you'll find our COVID-19 webpage with updates, resources, changes in legislation, right? It is always reviewed just to be the most accurate for you. Again, thank you so much for your time today. We really look forward to meeting with you all again soon.